Okay, we're continuing today with Basar B'chalav Sadi Dalid. We are continuing today with Seif Bet. Dalid. Seif Dalid. Why did I say Bet? Because I'm just going to point out, according to the Shulchan Aruch, who says if you put in the spoon twice, the Kaf HaChaim says if you're the Ram, someone asks you what to do, he says you don't have to ask if it was dipped more than twice. Just assume paskin based on dipping once, unless you find out that it was dipped twice, velo noda in between. Okay, that was that. And on Gimel, the very end of Gimel, so we learned, let's say it was, you ended up having a Ben Yomos milchik spoon in a fleshik pot. So, and it wasn't batal b'shishim. So the case is everything is Ben Yomo, and you're mixing meat and milk. So the food is fleishiks, chicken soup, cholent, beef stew, and you put in a milchik spoon that's within 24 hours. And it's not batal b'shishim, so we learned everything is aser. That's real basar b'chalav, and everything is the foods you have to throw out, and you can't even get hana for it. That's okay. So that's now. What I wanted to point out is, so we learned, so you have to kosher everything and throw out the food and kosher the pots and the spoon. Okay. However, what happens if it's eno ben yoma? So then, okay, so if the pot became basar b'chalav, now you have a basar b'chalav pot. And so can you use that within 24 hours? So there, for sure, you can't use it within 24 hours for food, for cooking food. It could, however, the poskim point out, the pot itself, the metal, is not isser hana. It's the belua of basar b'chalav, the belua that's aser. So therefore, if anything was cooked within 24 hours, the poskim say, you can look in the Shachtaz, you can use it for, let's say, hot water for washing your hair, or something unrelated to eating and drinking. And then it's not a problem. I'm not sure if you can do that lechatchila within 24 hours, at least it's tzarachiyun, because you're going to be further cooking what's in the pot. Not positive, but okay. But as far as if it's done within 24 hours, so then you can't use it for food. What if it's 24 hours went by? So then for sure it's okay, because it's ta'am lifgam. Whatever belua is in the pot, again, you can't use it lechatchila, but whatever was cooked b'di'evet in that pot, it's the same as always. It's an eino ben yomo, and that's ta'am lifgam, and you can eat the food. That's clear from the Aruch Shulchan, the Shach Taz, and you really don't have to. Just that's even the halacha, 100%. Well, you're not allowed to use that pot. A treif pot, you're not allowed to use. But if it was used, now the food that's in there, is tam nifgam, and now you can lechatchila eat that food in there. All right. Okay. I think we'll leave out the little details. Fine. And if it's within 24 hours, the Taz points out, so we learned the food's aser, that from when it got mixed. So then you can't eat, you have to flush it down the toilet or bury it. You can't even feed it to a dog. Okay, okay. Chasam Sofer Rebbe says you're allowed to sell it, even the same day. Okay, let's go on. Dalet. Seif Dalet. Im ein a kaf ben yomo. Now, what if the kaf is not a ben yomo, right? So then hakadera vev tafshel mutarim. So whatever's in the spoon is ta'am lifgam, and everything else is 100% kosher, no problem. Just be a kaf aser lechatchila. You're not allowed to use that kaf because lechatchila, right? You're never allowed to use it unless it gets used, then whatever it is ta'am lifgam. But it has a status forever as a basar b'chalav spoon because it got mixed with both. So lechatchila, you can't use it. Bein im basar bein im chalav. You can't use that spoon for hot, cold and hot, for hot meat or hot milk. But for shar dvarim, that's the machlokas Shulchan Aruch Ramah that we saw already, for pareve food. So, okay, umikol makom b'di'eved eino oseret, but if, again, halachically you have to kosher that spoon, or don't use it anymore. But if it was used, b'di'eved eino oseret, it's tam lifgam, it can't make other things treif. So your food's still kosher, kevan shelo hayta bat yoma, because it's not within 24 hours. Okay. Let's go on. Next. Hey. Im bishlu mayim b'kedera chadasha. Now, this is going to be related to the sugya we're going to learn again soon. Not bar not. No tein tam bar no tein tam. Okay. So the case is basically it's being transferred through a medium twice before it hits from the milk, before it hits the meat. So let's see. Probably we should learn the next siman first, but here, let's just read it. You have a brand new pot, right? Or it's been 24 hours. Let's just say you have a brand new pot, and you're... Yeah, or a pareve pot. Or any pot that's hasn't been used in 24 hours. Now, you're boiling water in there. Okay? So everything right now is still pareve. Right? Now, you take a spoon. Let's take a brand new pot or a pareve pot. We'll keep it simple because, okay. You're boiling hot water in there. Now, v'tachavo ba kaf cholevet. Now you're taking a spoon. Right now we're going to assume it's a ben yomo. You take a spoon, a milchik spoon, and you put it inside the boiling hot water. So now you had no tein tam from milk into the spoon an hour ago, and now you have, that's no tein tam already, not. Barnat is now, that spoon is going to put it inside the water. So the water is no tein tam, not bar no tein tam, dehetera. Everything is now kosher so far. It's just milk. There's no isser, there's no basar b'chalav. Okay. V'yachar kach chazru ibishlu ba mayim pa'am acheret. Now you take a new, let's see. Ibishlu mayim pa'am. Okay. Now you're taking new water, let's say, and you're boiling it into this pareve pot. Okay. V'tachavu ba kaf shel basar. And now you're taking a fleshik spoon. I'm not sure if it needs to be new water or not. Let's see. Yeah, I see. Then you take a meat spoon, and now you dip it into this hot water. Right. Of course, we're always talking about it's not shishim. So now you have a meat flavor from the spoon into this water. Ushtei kapot hayu b'nei yoman. Both the spoons are ben yomo. Ubeshum echad me'apamim lo hayu b'mayim shishim. And you never had the shishim connected the spoon, so it's never batal b'shishim. It is always no tein tam, and we're assuming obviously the two spoons weren't there at the same time because that'd be a problem. So asur lishtamish b'kedera. So now this kedera from the water is asur to use lo basar velo chalav. You're never allowed to use this kedera for meat or for milk, for hot, until you kosher it. Because what happened? It became no tein tam, bar no tein tam, through all the mediums. It could have been 3 or 4 times over, however many it is, doesn't matter. It's no tein tam, and it goes through this and it got into the pot, meat and the flavor of meat and milk, while it was a ben yomo. Aval shar devarim mutter, but you're allowed to cook with it pareve. That's the shita of the Shulchan Aruch. Mutter levashal mi'achar shahaita chadasha shelo bishlu ba me'olam. Since since the pot was brand new and it was never cooked in it before. Okay, fine. So it was never used before.
So you can make tea in that pot, but you can't put muffins or fletchers.
Correct. You can make eggs, but you can't make you can't cook meat and milk. That's the happens to be we're going to learn not barnat de hetera is not a problem. It's not so. Therefore, basically all the achronim don't understand the Shulchan Aruch, and it's Machoka Taz, and basically everyone, the Taz says that the Shulchan Aruch is just a chumrah, and it's not really lahalacha, and not mikar din. The Shach says, no, he thinks the Shulchan Aruch is midin, and it's not correct. Almost comes out to the same conclusion, two different takes. And the Kaf HaChaim lahalacha says, we don't follow the Shulchan Aruch. It's a stira to the halacha, it's a stira to what he writes further on, because not barnat de hetera is always mutter. So it's not going to ruin your dish. However, generally the Ashkenazi poskim, the Shach, says, lechatchila, you should designate this pot. You should either, if you want to, whatever the pot was used last for, whatever the last spoon was, meat or milk, that should be your designation of the pot, lechatchila. Otherwise, you should kasher it. And if you need to, you can use it for whatever you want, because it's really a chumrah. But try and follow it. That's the general. Okay, different achronim are going to have a little bit of a different spin on it, but that's basically how it works. Haga, mihu, im avar bishul ba'basar chalav mutar. Now, really, at the end of the day, any ingredients, anything that you did cook, meat, milk, whichever one it was, in the case that we just mentioned, it's still going to be mutter to eat the food. Because really there's no problem. It's not barnat. We're going to see this again later on in a little bit more detail. Not barnat to hetera is always mutter, at least b'diavad. Okay, and we'll see exactly how that plays out, how b'diavad, in which case is lechatchila, which case is considered b'diavad. To have a notein tam bar notein tam. The case of not barnat to hetera is mutter. And so therefore the food's going to be mutter b'diavad. Okay. All right. Kedera shebishlu ba yerakot omayim v'tachavu ba kaf ben yomo. You have a pot and you're cooking pareve in there, and then you put in a spoon of a ben yomo. V'kedera ena bat yoma, and the pot is not a ben yomo or a lahefech. So either way, if only one is a ben yomo and one's not a ben yomo, it's not going to make anything treif. O sheyesh b'machal shishim. Or obviously, if you're going to have shishim keneged, the spoon or whatever it went in, hakol shari, everything is mikar adin mutter. Okay. V'noagin lahachmer le'echol hama'achal kemin hakli shehu ben yomo. This is actually really an intro or a foreshadowing what we're about to learn. We're not there yet, we're going to see it soon. He says, but according to the Ramah, l'chatchila, we treat it like a ben yomo, not to mix it together. Like if you have, and we're going to see this again inside. But the food itself, if it was cooked in a ben yomo pot, even though everything is pareve, but the pot is meat or milk, and it's a ben yomo, l'chatchila, we don't eat that food with the opposite meat or milk. But if it's eno ben yomo, then even the Ramah is not machmer. So again, noagin lahachmer le'echol hamachal kamin hakli shehu ben yomo. We consider the food the same status as the kli if it's a ben yomo. V'le'esor hakli she'eno ben yomo, but we say the kli is aser even if it's not a ben yomo. Ve'eno ela chumra be'alma ki medina hakol shari. He agrees, well, everything is just a chumrah, but that's still the minhag. But midin, then everything is mutter. Okay, I think we'll see this again when we learn the siman of not barnat de hetera. I think that's fine for now. I think we'll get to Seif Vav. Yeah? Okay. Se'if Vav. Let's do this. Betzalim or Yerakot. Shebeluim mi basar. So let's say you cook onions, vegetables, anything. You're cooking something in a pot of meat. And so now your betzalim or yerakot have a status of basar. The same thing could be if you take an onion and you cut it into many, many pieces all the way through with a fleshik knife. Or again, everything's based, generally everything's the opposite. Also could go the other way, meat and milk. But you can always flip the converse. But the case over here that we're talking about is betzalim yerakot shebluyim basar. So it's became fleshik because it was cooked with meat, right? And it wasn't batel b'shishim. Right? Normal case of cooking a pot of stew. Ubishlam b'kedera cholevet, and now you took out the vegetables, right? So there's no meat, and you take the vegetables. Right? You can rinse off any of the basar juice, but it still has the flavor of basar. Ubishlam b'kedera cholevet. So now, let's say you by mistake you took that onion or that vegetable and you heat it up in a milchik pot. Im yadua kama basar balua bebetzalim beyerakot ein tzarich shishim ela keneged habasar. So this is just telling you a kula. Normally, so these are fleshik vegetables, and you need to have shishim of whatever else is in the pot keneged the vegetable. However, so that would be 60 times of the food to the vegetable, right? That's because it became a fleshik vegetable. However, what comes out over here is, let's say you know that it was only a tiny piece of meat that was cooked with the vegetable beforehand. And so let's say the vegetable is even bigger than the amount of meat that made it basari, or fleshik. So you only have to be keneged shishim, not keneged the whole vegetable. It only has to be keneged the piece of meat that made it, because everything right now is dehetera, and we don't say chanan chatikas nasas nevela to make the whole vegetable aser because it's still mutter right now. Only okay. I think hopefully that's clear. Haga, delo shayach lomar chatichas nases nevela. It doesn't make sense to call it chatichas nases nevela. However, dain kulo heter. Everything is still heter. V'lachein ein tzarich l'sha'erak neged mashabala. So you only have to worry about the amount of basar that was nivla. Can't be worse than even if you want to say theoretically all of it got transferred into the vegetable and all of it goes into this new milchik pot. The maximum you can have is that piece of basar. Okay. The kol shekain b'kedera shel chalav shebishla b'mayim toch me'et la'et, and certainly this is basically a converse case. You had a pot cooking with water, and then you had a little bit of milk get into the water. Let's say it wasn't batel b'shishim. V'achar kach bishlu b'basar, and now you took this meat and you cooked it in this water. So you have to have shishim keneged, not the water, but the few drops of milk that went in there. Obviously, if it's just one drop, it'll probably be batel b'shishim. But let's say you have a few drops and it wasn't batel to shishim to the water, and now this water gets mixed with meat. You only need shishim of the basar, keneged the amount of drops of milk that mixed into the water, not because the whole water doesn't become chanan. Lo amrinan de tzarich l'shar neged kol hamayim, rak neged hachalav shebala'a kedera. Or whatever.
It's not even about the mamashut of the milk in the water here. It's about the bleah from the pot.
Okay, so if you heated up a pot with a few drops of chalav,
that's not the case. Kedera shel halav, halavi. It's
yeah. So
pot that you put just water into it.
but it depends. However much milk went in there, into that pot from the time, that's the most that could be in the walls of the kli and into the water. Okay, whatever the case is, you can make up a little bit this way and that way, but yeah. Okay. Zayin. I think it's good. Here, I'll just say, right. Obviously, if you have no clue how much milk or basar got in there, then you have to do the maximum of the whole kli, or the whole vegetable. Correct? Okay. Now, it should be clear. Also, let's say, right, let's put into a pot. I don't know if I mentioned it, but if you cooked into a pot twice, two different times, it's all. And let's say you cook it once for. Just trying to think. If you end up cooking one time for meat with an item, and then another time with fleshik later on, and then another time, whatever. You only go back to 24 hours to worry if there was basar b'chalav. You never mitzdarif. I'm trying to. How do we phrase it right? There's no choser v'neor. Just because you use a pot between two times within 24 hours, that doesn't now make it. Here, this is the example. Let's say you cook a pot with milk for hour number 1. 8 hours later, you use it for pareve. That's better. And then another, let's say, from hour number 1, let's say now you go to hour number 26. So then when you cook hour number 26, you only have to worry about what was done in the past 24 hours. And just because it was used for pareve in the middle, that doesn't attach and like restart the clock from when the chalavi was used 26 hours ago. That's just pointing that out. Just thought that would be useful.
The clock ticks on the bouillon.
Okay.
Not on the usage, so to speak.
Okay. Zayin. Basar roteach shechatcho besakin cholavet. I'm just trying to think. We're moving on. Oh, it's almost done. You know what? Let me just say one other quick thing. There's going to be a rule that we're going to get to later on with Tarovis and later on in Kuf Chaf Beis, where we're going to discuss about Davar Charif. So I'm just as a caveat, everything we're learning right now, it's not with Davar Charif yet. There's going to be a principle, a general principle. We have to see it more in detail. But the general rule is when it comes to anything that you're cooking with something Davar Charif, it can pull out something that even if you have a flavor in there that's more than 24 hours, and we call it ta'am lifgam. If it's a davar charif that you're cooking for, depends again, it can rehabilitate it to turn it into shvach, but only to the food that's in the pot right now. It's not going to rehabilitate it, as you put it, and turn it lishvach in the pot, and then leave it in the pot lishvach. And then, in other words, in our example that we just mentioned, with you cook it with milks, and then for pareve, and then you're going to do it for fleshik much later on. So a davar charif is if the pareve stuff, in hour number 8 in our example, was a davar charif, then it's not going to now restart the choser v'ner or rehabilitate it. It's still, whatever was milchak is still milchak from hour number 1, and if you put meat in hour 26, that's called eno ben yama, even though there was a davar charif in the middle. But we're going to see that later on. Okay. I think we'll just stop for today and we'll continue.
Onion considered davar charif?
Onion? For sure.
So that the problem was that
Maybe scallions or the green ones not.
right,
That's a
but
question.
In Sitvav, the example wasn't really davar charif.
Right, so that's why I mentioned it. It was completely irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant. But that's why I just wanted to point out charif have a little bit of an issue.